welcome to the Food for Thought series, where we'll be sitting down with current thought leaders in the data and analytics space to offer you a valuable insight into how they run their practices and experiences. In today's mini interview, we'll be sitting down with Pablo, who is the Director of Data at Glovo, to discuss how Glovo measure the impact of their data and why this is valuable for them. So let's introduce Pablo. Let's firstly set the scene for our audience today and give them a bit of insight about yourself and how you got into the position that you are in.
Morning, Natalia. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me. So I'm Pablo Giner. I am actually a mechanical and electronics engineer. I started my career far from data. I was always very close to programming, but I didn't imagine that I would end up where I am today. I actually started working in the automotive world. I worked initially as a racing engineer, and then I moved into Jaguar Land Rover, where I was working in the steering of different vehicles. And after that, I moved into the calibration of engines. And it was there when my role was about how to make our engine professionals more efficient in their work. And what we realized was that rather than giving them better tools, what they needed was the ability to better analyze the data that they were already collecting. And that's how I accidentally got across data. And from there, I have never left it. So we worked there in developing an infrastructure to allow everyone to analyze the data they were collecting from vehicles, so high frequency signals and so on. And after that, I was a data scientist working for Accenture, and then I've been building teams in different companies. I arrived in Glovo like 2 years ago, yeah, and I arrived at a time when data was moving from being fully decentralized to more centralized. So we created kind of central processes, and we created a bigger group under which everyone could have good career opportunities. Everyone could understand what it meant to be a great data scientist, a great data engineer, or a great product or data analyst. And I've been a couple of years in this position, and it's been really, really exciting.
Amazing, amazing. And you're enjoying it at Glovo, I can imagine.
Definitely. It's very hectic, and there's tons of opportunities every day. So it is really nice, yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear. And obviously data is everywhere. And for the majority of businesses, the trick is how to harness its full potential. So how would you say that you go about measuring the data team at Glovo?
Cool. So for us, it's been an evolution. We, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we were fully decentralized. Actually, data was born within the product organization. It was born kind of organically. Hey, we need a product analyst to help us analyze this opportunity. And that product analyst actually realized that they didn't have enough data to be able to do their job. So they started hiring data engineers. Then in other areas of our company, like logistics, they actually realized that they needed data scientists to be able to optimize the way in which we deliver our parcels and so on, and our food. So we started to kind of grow the data function fully decentralized, and every area had their own hub. And this meant that we created great stuff, but at the same time, there was a lot of duplication. There was some areas that were super mature and really had very good practices and so on. But some other areas were the opposite. And in the end, like everyone was looking after their own their own area. And it was difficult to have cross-cutting initiatives that could raise the bar for the data function. So that meant that initially we didn't really measure data teams. Yeah. So we look at that, and this had some we created the data function. Yeah. Okay. And what this has allowed us to do is kind of having a cross-cutting function that really gives everyone the ability to understand what being great at data is. This function that we created 2 years ago has been evolving over time. And in the last year or so, we started looking at how to measure the impact of data teams.
Okay.
Yeah. Data teams today are measured on a quarterly basis. Yeah. And what we do for that is we created our own framework, which looks at impact as intrinsic value. Yeah. Okay. You can imagine for the stock market, yeah, when you measure the actual intrinsic value of a company, we try to reference or kind of share that parallel with our people and explain that if what you're doing in your project is actually increasing our ability to produce more revenue, to increase our profit, to produce savings, then that is creating intrinsic value for the company. Yeah, we started from being very kind of input focused, and when we look at, like, when we started doing that, everyone was, hey, I put this amount of time, I created, I have invested in this and that, and then we started moving through from the inputs, what everything was putting in, to what outputs are you creating, and really what are the outcomes. Yeah, and this in data is like, yeah, I've been investing in this project, and this has led to, hey, I have created these models, I have created these data sets, I have created these dashboards and so on. Yeah. But then how have the business metrics actually moved? Yeah. So by putting everyone focus on the actual outcomes, that means that it's not only about delivering the actual project, it's about going the last mile and making sure that this is used, or pushing other parts of the organization so this project actually gets implemented in product, or this dashboard get used throughout the company and so on. So we've made everyone focus on what is the outcome of the work they are doing. Okay. And then when we measure the impact on a regular basis, we look at it in a normalized way. We look at it in a monetary way. So okay. we actually measure teams by their how they impact the contribution margin of the company. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we try to go from the metrics that they have moved and how they map into actual, let's say, a normalized metric that we compare across teams. So it's been quite a journey from non-measuring any team to where we are today.
Very interesting. And I suppose having to do it that way, that's going to come with its benefits, and it comes with its challenges. So I suppose firstly we look at the challenges that you've had at Glovo when, you know, measuring impact that way. How's that been for you?
So yeah, there's been many. We put together this framework for measuring impact that we have shared with our community. And this framework has gone through already 4 different versions. And like, I think the last time I look at the statistic, it has had like over 800 comments from people across our organization and over 70 contributors to it. So it's really needed a lot of iteration to get it to where it is today. And these challenges have been, for example, the impact timeline. Yeah. So some projects that we work maybe have a length of maybe over a year. How do we deal with the impact timeline? And the way we have approached it is, for example, we look at how much, like, let's suppose that you stop working in a project today. Will that value that you say is going to be created will be created, or there's still some additional work to be done? Yeah. So let me give you a very typical example. What we do in marketing, we optimize how we distribute our budget to maximize the number of new customers that we acquire. Yeah, with our marketing efforts. Technically, like once you have invested that money, the benefit that you're going to get out of it is a number of new customers, and those new customers are going to have a lifetime value of X amount of euros. That's going to happen regardless if we do anything or not. Like, obviously, the company needs to be alive, and we need to be operating in that geography and so on. But that team doesn't need to do any additional effort. So what we do, like, the impact is measured as a projection of those new customers times the lifetime value of those customers over the next 3 to 5 years, this is going to give the company X amount of incremental revenue. Yeah.
Okay.
There are other instances in which the project is not really finalized. Maybe you have completed 80% of it, but without the last 20%, really the value is not there. So technically for those projects, there's not yet, like, we don't count that impact as realized. So for example, that's one of the challenges that we found, that how to kind of get everyone on the same page about when to count that impact. Yeah, how to deal with the impact timeline. Something else that we found is that data projects don't happen in a vacuum, and normally there are multiple teams involved. Yeah. And then if you are looking at the impact, well, what happens if this project is a shared, like it has had participating engineering teams and product teams, and we actually, the way we approach it is we talk about shared impact. Yeah. And we actually encourage the conversation between different teams to say, out of the total impact, how much is the contribution of each of the different parties participating in it? And these conversations are super useful because on the one hand, they raise awareness of the impact of the data function across different parts of the company. Yeah. And also it brings another set of eyes to challenge if the way that you are kind of estimated or counting that impact is correct. Yeah. So that's another of the challenges that we found. That, like, I have many more.
Can you keep going?
I can definitely keep going. Something else we found is that the nature of data project is different. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in a data project, what's like for us, we have different typologies, but I'll walk you through one of them, what we call a core initiative, which is what happens is that you go through discovery and hypothesis testing in a loop. Okay. Until you find that one of those hypotheses can work, then you implement it and deploy it to all your population. Yeah. What happens is that the real impact only happens when the last bit happens, when you have actually released and it's being used and so on. So when we look at the nature of data projects, in that whole initiative, you have had multiple analysis, multiple A/B tests, experiment analysis, and so on. You cannot look at the impact of each of these individual pieces. Yeah. Yeah, you need to look at the impact of the whole thing, and once it's been delivered. So trying to encompass data initiatives at that level is when you can measure the impact. If you try to go too granular, it's not going to work. Yeah, and that's other of the challenges that we have also found. Something else, and this is something that our community came to us and our managers came to us, and they were highlighting that, hey, if we this focus on impact can mean that we are very focused on short term and not long term, that we give up on innovation and so on. And the way we work around this limitation, if you want, is that we look at the concept of portfolio management. Maybe going back to the analogy of stocks. In stocks, you want to have stocks for different geographies, different size of companies, different type of industries, and so on. So you have a balanced portfolio. The same we encourage to do at senior manager level. We encourage that, yes, they need to have a balance of those, meaning that they need to have innovation projects and also short-term projects, because if you only have short-term projects, that means that your pipeline will dry up, and essentially you might be medium impact today, but in a certain period, you will definitely move to low impact. Yeah. But if you only do innovation, that means that maybe for the next year, you don't deliver real impact in all of your teams. So what we recommend is, hey, you have across all the different teams, we need to find a balance in which how much we dedicate to short-term versus long-term, and how are we kind of hunting for the initiatives of the future versus executing of what we have today. So.
No, it makes sense. And I reckon a lot of other business will probably have those same challenges as well. But I suppose when you're looking at this, what would be the benefits? What would be, those outputs?
So for us, there are really two types of benefits. Tangible benefits, if you want, is that it gives us better visibility, so we make better decisions, and we say, let's invest more in this project, let's invest more in this team, or less, or it's as they capture both the impact in the last period and the impact that they want to make in the next period. So we can also see how predictable these teams are. Are they able to execute in what they say they want to execute? And if they are not, then we can diagnose what is going on, how can we help these teams, and so on. So those tangible benefits are the most obvious ones. And obviously we want to invest more in initiatives that have the biggest impact. But there is also the part of intangible benefits that I think is maybe more than half of the overall benefits are what I call intangible, which is that now you listen to the conversation that happen in the corridors, and it's all about, okay, we can work on that, but what's the impact that it's going to bring? Like we see that our teams are really absorbing that impact culture, and they are challenging each other based on impact. Yeah,
okay.
That's definitely like the biggest benefit that we are getting out of it. And this cultural change, I think that is being possible because we have integrated impact within our processes. Like every quarter, we launch a kind of a process to capture the impact of each and every team. So they know what we are working today is going to be measured in the next couple of months. Like they have it very kind of ingrained in the day-to-day that, yeah, whatever we do, it needs to be linked to impact, because else, like, yeah, we are going to realize that what we are working on has not increased that intrinsic value of Glovo. So.
No, it makes sense. And I suppose, like, kind of looking at the future for Glovo now, what does that look like in like the next 12 to 18 months for data and analytics?
So I think part of it is going to be linked to what's going on in the industry. Like, I think that today, take aside this new AI and generative AI wave that is kind of in its own world right now, but yeah, every other company in our industry, which is the delivery industry, but many others, it is really about, we are not looking at growth anymore, we are looking at profit. Yeah. For data, that means that we are like, what right now we are doing, or what we are focused on, is optimizing the company, making it more efficient, and at the same time making our own organization data more efficient. Today we are heavily invested in tooling and in fixing some of our data foundations. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We have rolled out early versions of declarative or config-based platform for data engineering, for data science. We have built our own feature store, our own experimentation platform. We moved into data mesh about 1 year ago. And for all of this, we haven't fully realized the benefits. So we believe that our mission as a data organization is to make Glovo win with data. Yeah. Okay. And the long-term success of our business can only happen through data. Yeah, because it's a razor-thin type of margin industry that you need to become very efficient at what you're doing if you want to win. And we believe that winning means winning with data. So I believe that in 12 to 18 months, we will see all our key data already in our data mesh paradigm, with SLAs defined, SLAs monitored, they are met. We will use that foundational data that we have been creating for accelerating our data science cycle time. We will be putting models in production within the same day they are created. Yeah, this is one of part of the vision that we have for data science. So we want to give our teams the ability to test ideas very quickly. Yeah, and for that we are also automating the way in which we analyze our experiments. Yeah. So essentially, I think that we are going to see innovation happening more frequently, okay, in more areas, and essentially extending the power of data to many other areas of the organization. And I think that for us, this is going to happen through leveraging the different new platforms that we have put in place that are going to shorten cycle time a lot and kind of democratize the way we execute data. And the good thing for us is that we are not in that stage in which everything is in ideation and maybe we do it. We have actually released all these platforms, and now it is a time for executing on that and kind of refining it and making them a lot more user focused and so on. But we are now iterating on something that already exists. And I believe that over the next year is going to be kind of leveraging or harvesting all the value that we have been planting in the last year. Yeah,
definitely. It sounds like you've got a lot going on at Glovo, and I like the term you've used there, winning with data. It's an interesting term. I like it. Okay, fabulous. So yeah, there's been some really interesting insights in this interview today, Pablo. I think our audience will take a lot away from it. What would you say the key takeaways are for the audience today?
I think that one of the things that I believe are valuable from our experience is that, like, everyone talks about value, and I've been reading on media, and I've been even listening to your podcast. Like, this is so popular this day, and measuring the value that is brought by their organizations is really vogued these days. But I think that like, for walking the talk, it is very important to integrate value with your processes, and that we have achieved through an impact framework, but there are other ways to do it. And I think that another key takeaway is that, for me, is that much of the benefit is going to be on the cultural change that happens through making everyone be focused on value.
Okay.
And those intangible benefits that you're going to have by having your teams really focus on how to increase the value for the company are really massive. And I encourage different companies to actually look at which ways they could implement this in their own company without compromising their ability to innovate, which is maybe the biggest challenge that we have when we are very focused on impact.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for coming on the Food for Thought series, Pablo. It's been great speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. Thanks for inviting me.